Hello guys, this is Low Tech Game here. So, this is gonna be, well, unfortunately I kind of, well, I saw this coming, but I guess it's, well, there are some changes to it, but let's just get into it. So this is like a kind of follow-up, test or so, or a series of tests that I've done on the Ballista, so the HC-7. So this is just a follow-up on my findings on the vehicle itself, or so, going into the update that should be coming out tomorrow, apparently. So by the time you guys see this, if I can get this done this morning. But yeah, so going into it, so the Ballista itself is a siege class tank. It has a 250mm Hades mortar cannon, and it has a maximum range of 20 meters. The cannon itself, so as I've discussed before, fires similar to how you'd aim any other artillery piece in the game. Well, instead of directly aiming at it, you have to kinda guess where it's gonna go. So granted, you can use some binos to help you out with that, though with the short ranges I don't think that's advisable, just because of the fact that I'm sure that at 20 meters or so, anyone with a small arms rifle, so especially snipers, will be able to go ahead and take out your commander. So trying to adjust your gunner or your gun to go ahead and hit whatever your target may be. The Ballista still has a maximum round capacity of 6 rounds. This is of course taking into the fact that you can go ahead and put a round in the chamber itself and then have 5 rounds standing by ready to be reloaded. The 250mm siege tank shells or cannon shells, through like some various testing or so, I found that they are, well, what did I find here? I put like a little shot here. There we go. So in my little findings here, I found that they are actually, they're less effective than field artillery shells, which is to be expected. But the problem is that they cost almost twice as much. In fact, they actually cost almost 3 times as much, actually, to be frank or so. It's weird because of the fact that it's less useful than the field artillery shells. The field artillery shells can be loaded and they can be stacked. So, and then I did some various testing on the round's capabilities against different targets. Against vehicles, the 250mm shells are, they're not good, to be honest. I mean, like, I think it could probably 3 or 4 shot an AC, 5 or 6 shot a half track. If it doesn't bounce off, it's pointless to fire it at a light tank, and even more pointless to fire it at a battle tank, to be honest. And at 20 at a 20 meter range, it is just not effective at all. So it's not an effective weapon. So in order to get within range of these vehicles, you would have to go ahead and put yourself within twice or half of their maximum range, so putting you at a great disadvantage, or so, as you will be peppered by shells as you try to approach them, or so, and you won't be able to disengage. But that's not what the vehicle is designed for. The vehicle itself was designed to go ahead and attack buildings, or so, foxholes, emplacements, and whatnot. And in my review of it, or so, going through like just some basic testing, I don't think it's suited for that either, as it takes, I guess 2 shells to go ahead and take out Foxhole. Granted, the first shell brings it down to like 17 or like 20% health remaining, so it seems to be not that effective. I think it only reduced an AT to 30% or so, and it would take at least like 5 or 6 shots to take out a tier 1 encampment. I don't believe it has a great deal amount of splash damage, so it can't really be used against infantry. Let alone the fact that the individual shells themselves are so expensive to the point where using them against infantry would be not advisable, not only because of the fact that the shells themselves are fairly expensive, but on top of that, the fact that you only have a total of 6 shells that you can carry on your tank before you have to be resupplied or so. And anyone who's putting shells into your tank are literally holding the shell over their shoulders so as they're walking towards you, so completely slow, completely vulnerable. So it's literally ill-advised to go ahead and try to supply this on the front line, as anyone who tries to load it will probably end up getting themselves killed, and whatever vehicle they're storing those shells in will probably get disabled as well. So I can see this vehicle, well, I mean, if I go into like durability, it is better than I saw in the initial like community test that we Foxhole creators got the privilege of joining. In that test or so, it was pretty bad. It got disabled in 2 shots or so. It seems in this version, it can actually take quite a beating or so, probably 4 to 5 light tank shells or so, and it actually has a good chance of bouncing as well. So there might be some chance of it being quite effective at just taking shells and kind of just going after like high priority targets or so. But I don't know, because it's just like, it's weird. They released the I guess the caliber of shells that they put into all the tanks, so, and it's confirmed that the field artillery cannon's 150 millimeter, it's a 150 millimeter caliber gun, and yet it seems to be far more superior than the 250 millimeter mortar, or so the Hades mortar, unfortunately. And it's, I mean, the shells are cheaper. They do probably more damage, from what I can tell. I believe I've seen field artillery pieces just one-shot Foxhole, so at least it would get, and even if it was equivalent to the damage of the siege gun or the Ballista's, Hades mortar cannon, the field artillery is shooting from 150 meters away or so, max, while the Ballista is firing at 20 meters or so. Literally, you will see the Ballista before it can engage you, which is crazy to think about. So, just, I guess, like, going into it, I do believe that it's not a particularly useful weapon, so I can't think of any reason you'd go ahead and develop it, because of the fact that it doesn't fit a niche role. Like the wooden assault tank can be seen as a medium tank, something that is much more powerful than the light tank in a one-on-one engagement, but also not powerful enough to go up against a battle tank, just because of the sheer health, armor, and caliber discrepancy or so. Even though I think possibly so they might be able to cheese it RNG style, if they both shoot at the battle tank's turret, they might be able to go ahead and just disable that and then wail away at the battle tank or so as it retreats. This siege tank can't do that. It can't go ahead and engage vehicles or so, at least the vehicles that matter in the late game. Its shells are way too expensive, and they unfortunately don't do that much against the primary target, which are buildings, essentially. So it has a reasonable amount of armor, yes, but I feel that in the later game, essentially, so with, I mean, granted, RPGs seem to have a high chance of ricocheting, so I'm not sure about stickies though, but I do feel that it will be extremely vulnerable, and it's not, it doesn't have the cannon to match its drawbacks or so. If the 250mm cannon was extremely powerful, if it was like just a derp tank or so, even if it was just like an SPG where it could fire at maybe 60 meters or something, so 60 to 20 meters, and it could go ahead and fire these nice, high explosive shells that just destroy an entire entire, like, I don't know, 5-meter radius. But could only hold, like, maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 shells or so, including the one in the tube. And then also had it where the shells were just equally as expensive, but also made it so it took way longer to reload, even requiring it to maybe even hold 1 shell at a time, and then have it where you actually have to have, like for the, excuse me, the Stone Tiger. The Stone Tiger, from what I could tell, in order to reload, it had to have a crane go ahead and take a shell and actually load it into the compartment itself. Excuse me. But if they had a mechanic like that, well, it's kind of balanced that way, so I could see it as very useful. But as it stands right now, I don't see why you'd want to use it, to be honest. So I think it's a very interesting design. So I like the design on it. It's really reminiscent of those SPGs from World War II and whatnot. But I kind of like what is it, like going through one of the starter towns for the colonials or so, you just see signs or so talking about how bad and terrible and how broken this tank is, so I kind of have to agree with them, unfortunately. So I do feel like it needs some form of nerf, or not nerf, buff. It's already been nerfed to hell. Other way around. So it needs a massive buff. So I feel like its Hades mortar cannon needs to do way more damage. It's technically only 50 millimeters short of the storm cannon. Yeah, the storm cannon, the giant massive cannon that can shoot across the across into other regions, essentially. So I feel like it does need some type of buff in order to be competitive to some degree. But as it stands right now, so I quickly see them not being used so in frontline combat, as they don't particularly seem to be that useful. So I feel like most of the siege tank drivers are going to get themselves killed trying to go ahead and get within range of enemy buildings or so, or vehicles. Hopefully they don't engage vehicles. The 250 millimeter shell should not ricochet off of anything, so it should at least explode on contact. That's basically just it's a higher caliber than the 150 millimeter or 152 millimeter gun they had on the KV-2, which is crazy to think about it. So I think the I can't remember if the Storm Tiger or so had I think it had a 300 millimeter, shells, rocket propelled shell essentially, but it's just I don't know. I think it needs a buff. It needs a buff. I hope that when the game releases tomorrow, the devs did something to help this tank, because if it doesn't have a buff, it's going to be absolutely useless. And if anyone makes it, they're going to waste resources and time building a tank that is basically useless, essentially. So even in terms of tanking damage, I think you would have a better time with one of the upgraded battle tanks, essentially, or so. The colonial one with sandbags. That's because that has a machine gun, the 75mm cannon rips apart structures just as easily, as it's cheaper by the shell. It has a greater range. Yeah, so I don't know. But tell me what your thoughts are in the comments if you had a chance to try it, or if you have any thoughts on what I've just said, I guess, so. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stay tuned. I will definitely try to be there on day 1 or so for the next update or so on the 12th or so. It should be kind of interesting. We'll have to see how that goes. Anyway, I will see you guys next time.